Can you talk about the program allowing 17-year-olds the chance to vote in the general election if they're 18 before then in the primary, and that whole process, because it may be confusing to some people watching the program. They don't know the exact details.
Great question. So 17-year-olds cannot vote yet in Vermont, but there's a constitutional amendment that will be on the ballot to vote on this fall that would allow 17-year-olds to vote in a primary if they're going to be 18 by the time the election comes around. It's very hard to get a constitution amended in Vermont. It's a 4-year process. You can only begin the amendment process once every 4 years. It begins in the Senate Government Operations Committee. It's got to pass both the House and the Senate by supermajorities. And then there has to be an election. A new House and Senate is seated, and then they have to vote and pass it again a second time round. And then at the next election, it goes to the people to vote. So we're in that very last stage now where it's the proposal's coming to the people for a vote. And I think it's likely to pass. We're going to be, well, the next Secretary of State will be helping our clerks implement it. It'll be very easy to do. Essentially, if you're 17, you have to show proof of your age, and then you'll get to vote in the primary and have your choice counted. And understand, this is a nomination process. It's not the election. So, you know, it's having a 17-year-old vote makes sense. And if you think about it, that would be for the next presidential primary. You'll have kids who are seniors in high school who are studying taking a look at the election, studying civics, following the presidential race, and they'll actually be able to participate in the primary.
What are some ways young people can get civically engaged?
We've got a program called Vermont Votes for Kids that schools can use to learn about how we elect people to office, why our vote is important in a democracy, how you research candidates, how you analyze the media to look for a bias, how you analyze political advertisements. It's a fun program, and there's a 5-week newspaper and education program that's part of it. So it's a whole, once a week, being published right now in our newspapers. It's a whole page full of information about elections and democracy. Young people who want to get involved can get involved in lots of ways. The campaigns are all looking for volunteers, going door to door, putting out lawn signs, making phone calls, waving at cars, participating in rallies. Those are all very important parts of the political process. So even if you're not old enough to vote, there's still a lot of ways you can participate and make a difference.
There is data suggesting that there's strong political ignorance in this country. What would you support working with the Vermont education system to develop some sort of political science curriculum or a set political science course for high school students, for instance, so that they can be informed citizens and active citizens in this global community?
Well, it's very hard to create new mandates to apply to our schools. So I would actually advise my successor that probably won't be a successful way to go because of local control. It's hard to pass new mandates. On the other hand, it'll be important for my successor to continue to work closely with the education department to get our existing curriculum, Vermont Votes for Kids, and we actually have other curriculum relating to how the legislative process works, how the judicial process works, the separation of powers, how that all works in Vermont. To get those materials into the hands of our schools. I think we can get a lot done by holding out carrots as opposed to sticks. One of the proposals we've made over the years is to have a School of Civic Distinction Award to recognize schools that are doing a good job teaching kids about citizenship. And by doing that, encourage other schools to get on board.
You have won 6 straight elections as Secretary of State. Why not stay in that role?
I've loved being Secretary of State for 12 years, but I really believe in a democracy. It's not fair to stay much longer. And while we don't have term limits in Vermont, I do think that it makes sense to give someone else a chance at the job. I'm not as fresh as I once was. I can't take a look at the office and come up with new creative ideas the way somebody freshly elected will be able to. So I decided to step down and let somebody else have a chance at this office.
Are you endorsing any of your potential successors, including Jim Condos, Jason Gibbs, or Leslie Marmoral?
Well, I'm a strong supporter of Jim Condos. Jim's a great friend, but also he has worked with me when he was in the legislature. He was the chair of our committee, the Government Operations Committee. And together we worked hard on legislation that made it easier to vote and harder to cheat. We worked on legislation that helped our small businesses get their jobs done better and making Vermont more business friendly. We worked on legislation that made it tougher on professionals who, are ripping people off or who are incompetent. So we were protecting the public from fraud and abuse. And but the reason why I'm really supporting Jim, though, is we need someone in this office who really understands what this office does and who's ready on day one to manage and to move us forward. What we don't need is another Katherine Harris. Remember Florida and the election with Al Gore and George Bush, having a politician in that office. And sadly, Jason Gibbs, his main background is as a political spokesperson for the Republicans. He's a partisan political operative. And I think it would be a terrible mistake for the state of Vermont to have a partisan political operative in this office running our elections, as opposed to somebody who is well known for his bipartisanship. Jim Condos has been elected in a nonpartisan role as the chair of the city council in South Burlington. In the legislature, he was known for working across party lines and putting good policy over partisanship, and that's what we need in this office.
You recently ran an election campaign for governor, and you ranked third in the Democratic primary. What do you think happened in that election? Did you get out enough? What were some of the issues with it, and what was your experience like running for governor?
To the very end, the polls kept saying that of all of the Democrats in the race, I was in the best position to beat Brian Doobie. But that's because my record and my reputation is a nonpartisan reputation. And it's hard to win a primary without a very partisan record. I'm very proud of the race we ran. It was a great experience. I have great respect for the winner, Peter Shumlin. I think he'll make a fine governor. But I ran as a moderate because that's who I am, and we did what we could and didn't quite make it over the finish line.
Do you know why that might be? Was it just not getting out there enough?
No, in a primary, the primary voters tend to be much further to the left than the general electorate. But also in a five-way primary, it divides things up, in ways that are unexpected. And, the union vote went with one of my opponents, Doug Racine. I didn't expect to get the union vote. Of all of the people running in the race, I'm the only person who's ever managed a union workforce. And so that's a different kind of relationship. Peter Shumlin's message was a message that was directed very squarely to the Democratic primary audience. And, I had a good government message.
Wrapping up our time together, I'm sure a lot of your supporters would like to know what's next for Deb Markowitz, and is public service in your future?
Well, whatever I do, it'll be giving back in some way, because that's how my husband, Paul, and I live our lives. But it's too soon to know.
Do you have any ideas? Because it's coming up. You're going to have to relinquish your position.
It is coming up. But no, I'm starting to have conversations with people and talk. And, I've got expertise. Nationally, I'm recognized as a leader in progressive election reform and civics education. And those are some of my passions. But also working with our communities is something I'm passionate about. And, of course, I've loved managing and being an executive. So I'm looking at a variety of things.
Thanks for watching Beyond the Headlines. I'm Justin Schnedt here at the State Capitol Building. If you'd like more information on the program, you can visit our website at justinschnedt.com. Under TV section, you can just click on Beyond the Headlines. We'd like to hear from you in order to make the show better and more informational, and that you can apply to your everyday lives. Make sure you tune in each and every week here at KATV Channel 7. See you right back here next week.